What's up there, everybody? Fearless Friend here. I was going through a lot of the comments in the last Racing Lawnmower update video. If you didn't see it, it's right there. I did a time lapse to music. It's pretty cool. I really liked it. It's actually one of my more favorite videos that I've done. A lot of work went into it, so I was really glad a lot of people liked it. But I noticed a lot of people had a lot of questions, and I kind of knew that was coming due to the fact I really didn't give any explanation to what I was doing in the video. So I kind of making this video just to kind of answer some questions, basically give a little bit more information as to what I did and why I did it that way. So first off, we'll start with what I did to prep the frame for painting. And basically what that entailed was I obviously stripped the whole thing of all its parts. And I went over the entire frame with one of these knot wire wheels, which actually you guys didn't see any of that footage just because it took such a long time. And I didn't put all the footage into that last video because it was way too much. Then I went over it with one of these sanding flat discs for a grinder. All this work was done with the grinder. That thing works really good. It's pretty cool because it takes a little bit of the metal and it takes the paint, and it's pretty aggressive, so you can't hold it in one spot or else you will bore a hole in your metal. But they're really handy. I've never really used one of these, and my buddy Street Legal Kart's this is actually his disc, and he left it here essentially telling me to use it because I've never used one, and he said I'd really like it, and as it turns out I actually do really like it. It's pretty cool. And it lasted a hell of a lot longer than I thought it would, so that's neat. Then I finished off the whole frame with one of these coral pads. I don't really know what the technical name for them is, but they look like coral. These are really cool. They're also pretty expensive for what they are. Like one of these is like 10 bucks, and you'll probably, if you're using it constantly, you'll get about 15-20 minutes out of it maybe, grinding away paint. But it's awesome because it only removes the paint scale and lightly buffs the metal and roughs it up a little bit. It doesn't really take any metal, which is pretty incredible for something like this. So after I sanded all the metal down, there was, shavings and crap everywhere, so I had to do something to clean the metal off. So I started off by using this grease and wax remover, and you can get this at auto parts stores, and this stuff it's pretty good. My only complaint is it doesn't really evaporate. It leaves a residue, and it says it leaves no residue, but it does. So you've got to either tack rag this stuff off or go over the entire thing again with some good old acetone, which is what I did because I have it. So I cleaned all the metal off, which took quite a while. You guys didn't really see much of that footage, but there was a bunch of it, and that took quite a while to clean every nook and cranny. So I did that, and then after that, I obviously painted it. To paint it, I used a bare metal primer, which basically means it's self-etching. The primer actually etches itself into the metal. And then to follow up on top of that, I used a hammered finish black Rust-Oleum spray paint. And what hammered finish is it kind of almost looks like fisheye or something, if you guys know what that is. But it's basically a textured finish. It hides imperfections, which there are a lot of in my frame because I'm not a professional fabricator. There's grinder marks. So this paint worked really well at hiding some of that. So that's why I used that. I didn't clear coat it. I did do 2 coats of primer, 2 coats of color coat, and that's pretty much where the frame is now. So here's the frame as it sits now. That paint came out more as a dark charcoal gray than a black. And the hammered finish did come out alright, but not quite as textured as I wanted it to. But it does have like speckles of metal flake in there. But it is like a charcoal gray, like a dark gray color, not quite black. And I've actually got to let this cure for like a week or maybe 2 before I start putting things back together, or else the paint will start peeling off onto the bolts, and that's not good. A couple of things I did do was put the bushings back in the steering as well as the grease fitting there. But I know I said I was going to sandblast and have this thing powder coated before, but when I actually researched doing that in my state, there was nobody in the area that did sandblasting, surprisingly. And when I thought about renting a sandblaster and doing that, the cost was just too high to justify for this one little project. And powder coating, pretty much no one in the state of Maine within a few hour drive of me powder coats. So I wasn't about to powder coat this frame, only to reassemble it all and then possibly have something chip anywhere on the frame, and then essentially have to take the whole thing back apart, drive it another couple hours back to the powder coat place and get it repowder coated. So I opted for the spray paint finish. Couple reasons being, it's easy, it's cheap, I can do it here in my garage. If something ever goes wrong or I need to change anything, I can grind it, cut it off, grab a can of spray paint and just kind of fade the finish into it without disassembling everything and having to have the whole frame powder coated and baked again. So here's some of the parts, and the nut guard and the exhaust and some of the other stuff there, the steering. And this you guys actually probably wouldn't have noticed in the time-lapse video, but let's see if I can get it to a section where you can see. The end of this axle shaft actually stripped itself out, which is really disappointing because I don't have much time at all on this axle shaft. So I got to get another one. This is the nut. As you can see, the threads are all just rounded off, so that kind of sucks. Gonna need a brand new axle shaft. Over here we've got the steering, which is hanging from the ceiling, as you can see, the handlebars. And I've gone ahead and painted that gloss black just because I want to allow a good amount of time for that to cure, you know, before I obviously have to reassemble it. There's a few other parts I need to paint, I just haven't gotten around to it. Some things I do still have to paint is these mesh pieces will be a silver color, this mesh and this mesh here. So it, you know, has a little bit of contrast against the dark frame and black parts and everything else. You can see the rest of the parts are down under in my cabinet here. That's all the hardware, more or less, and these are the kind of the parts. You know, the brake caliper and other stuff. And actually I think I'm going to paint this like a high temperature red color, kind of like a Brembo caliper, and you know, dress it up a little bit just so it looks good. And over in my other room here we got my 4 tires and my seat. And I've actually got a really neat idea for this seat. I kind of want to run by you guys, see if you guys like it. But this is one of those Tractor Supply seats, and it is really thin material. You can see it. And I'm really worried about people sitting in this with like keys in their pocket or something and just poking a hole through it. Because the first seat I got actually had a hole in it. I returned it and got one of these that didn't have a hole in it. So, I mean, it's only a matter of time before it gets a hole in it. What I'm thinking about doing is having these grommets pulled out and basically having the whole thing reupholstered with like a leather, like a black, like a thick black leather, or like a tan leather, cowhide, something, I don't know, something cool, a little bit nicer than this thin black neoprene. And I don't know what these grommets are. They kind of look like for like a tarp or a sailboat or something, I don't know. So I'll probably take that somewhere and get that reupholstered with leather, or maybe I'll have to send it away, I don't really know, but definitely a neat idea to think about. I can't wait to get this thing back together, so I hope it cures quickly. It's about 80 degrees in my garage every day, and I leave it closed up just so this thing bakes. So I pray in a week or two, once I get all the accessories painted, that I can start reassembling this thing, and it is just going to look badass. I'm not going to tell you guys what color I'm painting the hood, so don't ask me. I'm just not going to tell you, just because I'd rather it be a surprise, and honestly I think you guys probably would too. The motor, I'm still going back and forth on the motor. I feel like a lot of people want me to build the clone. I'm not really sure whether or not I want to build the clone just because it's a Chinese clone. I'm highly considering getting a genuine Honda, and actually NR Racing sells genuine Hondas partially built for about the same price you could get a regular stock GX Honda 200. So I'm considering that. Not really sure yet. Haven't made up my mind. Might build the clone because it's cheaper. I just don't want the thing coming unraveled on this frame and destroying something. So that's my only reason for that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. We'll call this part B of Racing Lawnmower update number 19 because there's not really much of an update here. Just me rambling on about a bunch of useless stuff. But I hope you guys enjoyed the last video. I really enjoyed making it. But that's it. We'll see you guys later.